Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Psychedelic Vantage. For those who are subscribed, you most likely already know who our guest here today on the channel is. For those new to the channel, we have the pleasure now of speaking with Christian Angermayer. Christian is a serial entrepreneur, an investor who builds and invests in companies shaping the next human agenda, a future in which technology empowers people to live longer, healthier, and happier lives. Christian is the single biggest investor in psychedelic medicine, the founder of Atai Life Sciences, and he was one of the earliest investors in Compass Pathways. Many people say that without Christian Angermayer, there would be no present day psychedelic medicine sector. If I were to speak on everything else this guy is currently doing, I would be talking for much longer. So without further ado, let's get this started. Christian, how are you doing today?
Good. Oh well, sitting in London. It's actually finally spring, so happy. A little bit recovering from a cold, so I've still a little bit of a rough voice, but like otherwise we're good. And thanks for what nice you said. Like I take the compliments.
Of course. So glad you're feeling better. And so let's get this started. Christian, it is no secret that this is a huge year for the psychedelic medicine space. What are you looking forward to seeing the most in the next couple of months?
Well, the two big things who are coming up is obviously, hopefully, the approval then for MDMA by MAPS, respective the new name Lycos. And at the same time, Compass Pathways will have their first out of two readouts for phase 3 psilocybin. So I would say from here, plus minus over the next 12 months, we hopefully have both MDMA and psilocybin approved, which is like, I think need to explain why, but it's a game changer for both psychedelics as called an industry, but especially for patients. And then I would say that 2, 3, 4 years after, all the other psychedelics, which mainly Atai is doing, will come to market as well. So let's say 5 years from now, the world or the landscape for mental health treatments will be really radically different from what they know in a very good way.
Absolutely. And it's very exciting. I know Adam and I are very much looking forward to the approval decision in August for Lycos, and then looking forward to seeing data from Compass Pathways and treatment-resistant depression. Huge year. So in your recent in your recent written piece on LinkedIn and Substack titled Atai Life Sciences, All Major Psychedelics and More in Just One Company, you lay out the both thesis for Atai in great detail. Can you share to the viewers watching what makes you so optimistic about Atai's potential?
If I start, like, by the way, the same is true for Compass, where Atai is still the largest shareholder. Yeah. It's sort of very weird if you look at the society. I think I could almost say the fact, because technically we still have to wait for the FDA decision, but like society in a very good way treats it as a fact that psychedelics will be approved. And everything I just said, like that they will be approved, that they will change how we treat mental health issues in a very good way. And all of that is kind of an accepted fact. Yeah, you are at dinners and people are like, oh yeah, psychedelics are coming. Like you talk actually to regulators, you talk to scientists. So practically all stakeholders sort of expect it to go very well. And then at the other side, you look at the valuations of the listed, I have to say serious because there's a little of bullshit as well, but like you look at the valuations of Atai, you look at the valuation of Compass, whatever, and that doesn't fit. So if Atai, which I do believe, like what society believes, has a portfolio of medications which gonna be, apparently, I'm saying now according to society, very likely, I believe it as well, be approved over the next, by the way, 3 to 4 years, yeah, not 10 years, yeah. Atai should be a multi-billion company, even in current markets today, and not a 400 million company. So my question was a bit like, where's the disconnect between seemingly the stock market valuations and everything else? And there's many reasons which come together. The one is that biotech in itself went through a really hard time. And in hard times, investors want traditional stuff. Like there's some stock market times where being the cool kid is great, and that we had as a tie in 2021. Yeah. And then there's times where being the cool kid is not great. You want to be the ordinary kid, which we're not. Yeah. Not because we don't want to be the ordinary kid, but because psychedelic therapy is fundamentally a new treatment paradigm, which, by the way, is so great because clearly the old one doesn't work. Yeah. So all the shit stuff which we're doing at the moment or trying to do to people like with mental health issues, it doesn't work. So we need a new treatment paradigm, but it's a new one. It's because it's not just psychedelics. It's not a cookie cutter model. Oh yeah, pop a pill. It's like therapy. Yeah. As you know, like MAPS and Compass have a whole therapy regime. So people have to do therapy. Then in the middle of the therapy, there is the psychedelic session with the therapist together. So you go to them just for, I guess everybody who's listening knows that, but like I just want to repeat it. And then you have even post-integration therapy. So that is a new treatment paradigm, which I think is the right one for mental health, independent from economics. But like investors don't like that stuff in general, not that stuff, but like investors don't like novelty in bad markets. And we're still in a bad biotech market. So that is one reason. The other one is another big discrepancy between, I would say, society and investors, and especially pharma companies, is everybody expects that these medications will be approved. But if you would go to most pharma CEOs and say, how quickly will patients use it? They think that's going to take years. And I think they grossly wrong. So if you want to hear my biggest sort of kind of contrarian bet, contrarian maybe not to you because you believe it, yeah, but like contrarian to investors in biotech and pharma CEOs, is that once psychedelics are approved, yeah, it's gonna be even faster than we are officially thinking as a tie. And there's two reasons. The one is like all the studies you see, all the research reports you're reading about Atai and Compass, they assume, by the way, and that's what we officially are doing, is that psychedelics will be the last resort, the last treatment option. Yeah, as you say, like Compass is doing treatment-resistant depression, which by definition says, oh, you have tried everything else, and then that doesn't work, and then you say, you know what, now let's do psychedelics. I can tell you in the future, people will go to their therapist and say, I don't want to start with the shit stuff just to at the end come to psychedelics anyway. I want to start with psychedelics. So I think my expectation is psychedelics will be the first line of defense, not the final line. And the reason for that is the virality of psychedelics. In a meaning like, and by the way, again, you two are very, very good examples for that, and me and everybody else I know. Like, I would say if I look back, I have treated maybe 30 to 40, treated, I shouldn't say that like that. I have helped 30 to 40 friends, 40 to 50 friends who had a medical need for it, not just the spiritual longing, but like who had a medical need. I have helped them getting set up with psychedelics. And all of them have been helped. Some of them have completely been cured. All of them have been, but which is another takeaway I'll tell you in a second about the efficacy of these drugs. But like what I can say, all these people who have been helped by psychedelics became advocates in their own right. Meaning some of them told just their parents, yeah. Some of them, like you, have a podcast, yeah, or me talking on your podcast. But let me rephrase it differently. I have never met a person who has experienced the healing power of psychedelics and didn't want to have other people experience it as well. And by the way, as simple as this sounds, that's one of the best things for any product. Think about it. Like, these are really passionate people who go out and talk about it. Yeah, and I mean, we all are witnesses, like how many dinners we have where people are like bringing it up and saying, hey, I literally yesterday I had a dinner and people didn't know what I'm doing, where a woman was talking like how much she was helped by psychedelics and she would recommend to do it. Have you ever had a dinner where people said, you know what, I'm taking Xanax since 3 weeks and it's so amazing? No, because it's shit. Yeah, so, and I think that virality of psychedelics in a very good way, where once they are approved, people will go to their therapist and say, I want it because it helped my cousin, it helped my mother, whatever, is completely underestimated by kind of boring pharma CEOs who've never tried it and cannot imagine that there is something which people have then a longing for. Yeah. And by the way, last point, because I know it's a little bit a while ago, but the question comes sometimes about sort of the efficacy of psychedelics when the Compass data phase 2b came. And I think even with MAPS a little bit, people were like, oh, it didn't help 100% of the people. Yeah. By the way, still the data was amazing. Yeah. But it was not the panacea some people were hoping for. So first of all, nothing in life is a panacea. Like we're all individuals. So, but what I can add, which I believe and which puts it a little bit maybe in context, is for psychedelics, it's by the way different for cancer drugs or whatever, but for psychedelics, I believe the study results for any psychedelics are more a worst case. And then, by the way, if you think about it, oh, this data is worst case. I was like, it's super good. Yeah. But like, why do I say that? Because obviously, for the reason how trials have to be designed, they have to be completely randomized. They have to be completely standardized. You cannot, for example, do it twice. Yeah. Or you could, but then the trial would explode in costs. If I look into the reality I see in underground treatments, and as you might know from own experience, whatever, sometimes, and especially healing trips for people who had trauma, whatever, can be very hard. And to a certain extent, for example, you can say, I don't want to go there right now. So I've seen and witnessed many friends who did psychedelics for a real medical reason, who in the first trip weren't helped, but because they were like, oh no, I didn't want to go there. But then they came out of it and were like, but actually I could feel it's good for me, and told their therapist, can we do it again next weekend? And then when they did it the second time, they were much more open to let go. And then it did work. So, or another example, a very beautiful one I just had, beautiful, sad, beautiful. Like I spoke to a person who was a genocide survivor and who, by the way, told me that he did psychedelics, it did help a bit, but not as much as he was hoping. But then when I asked, he was like, oh, but he never did therapy around it. I was like, well, that's the point. It's not like just the trip. It's like, it's much more around it. But in the discussion then, we realized together that there's an underlying sort of kind of self-hate. So if you're like the survivor, others are not, you start like sort of resenting yourself. So my very banal, and I asked him, by the way, because it's not like I'm not a therapist, I said, look, go to a therapist, but you need a therapist because why? Because like in the future, especially in some years from now, then therapists could say, for you, it makes maybe sense to do, in this case, I would recommend MDMA first, because it's opening up, it's working on your PTSD, and a big part, like, which we see in the MDMA data, is that people can learn to love themselves again. And then once you have solved that, then you're ready to, because people sometimes have multi-trauma. Yeah. So, and also that's sort of how I always see psychedelics. The world is like, it's not one size fits all. It's like, we want to give, as a Thai, therapists a really broad tool set. And hopefully in 5 years, that means 6, 7 psychedelics they have. And then they can really look at the patient like a doctor does, but like it's so normal in any other thing. Like cancer, you would say, oh, like, let's do this first, let's do that, then let's combine the whatever. And that's all not reflected in these single trials. So long story short, for many reasons, I believe psychedelics will be even more effective than we can see in the data right now. And that altogether will make a much quicker sort of market penetration.
That was very, very well said, Christian. And I think I want one other thing I want to add here as well. Me and Jake were actually talking about this in a different episode where we're comparing psychedelics to current treatment methods that are available, like SSRIs, SNRIs, whereas there's so much more investment when you have to start an SSRI and you have to be on it for a couple months. And then after the couple months, you don't know if it works. And there's all these side effects that come with it or possible side effects that come with it, and then you even have to wean off afterwards. Whereas with psychedelics, you can go in, you can see if it works, and there is much less in terms of there's no you don't get addicted to it or anything like that. It's just much easier to start and stop to see if it's working for you,
Yeah.
and it's working for many people.
Yeah, 100%. But again, it's a new treatment paradigm. So if you talk about the stock market, like investors and pharma CEOs have to sort of wrap their head around it. But I 100% agree. But the market will tell. That's, by the way, why I'm super relaxed. Meaning, obviously, because I know, hopefully, and I know the pain, like if that there might be people on the watching us, Atai share price is down still since the IPO, and I'm not proud of it, but it's not, we're doing everything we can. But what I know, what I'm confident, meaning I bought more, like didn't sell anything, is like the market at the end will show both the efficacy and the commercial power of these substances. And later then also investors will most likely before, because we'll discover sort of these stocks again.
So to build on this, is which psychedelic compound are you most excited about in the Atai portfolio? And has your perspective around this evolved since founding Atai?
It's really like, it's not that because like I'm thinking like, and there is no politically correct answer, but like, it's really what I'm excited about is what I said before, seeing in people who use it already now in therapy, underground or in countries where it's legal, that they work partly really well together. Yeah. So that they very complement. So sometimes they're very complementary, and then you have psychedelics who work better for this, work better for that. So I really think there is a reason why we have a portfolio, not just because they are like so, but the world needs all of them. Yeah. So I still think sort of psilocybin has a special place because it was my first psychedelic. It's also a little bit like the broad spectrum antibiotics. Yeah. If I say that for the brain, I always say people, look, while I think a good therapist can tell you this is the right one for you, sort of psilocybin is always good for you. Like that's sort of my baseline. But then there's so many. I really like 5-MeO DMT and DMT for the reason that, meaning Adam, you said yes, it is actually much easier. But I also see like people like, I have to do. I like a 4-hour trip, but like when I talk to friends, they're like, I would take the 2-hour trip. We're living in a world where people unfortunately are like that. Yeah. So, but then you also have all the costs, all the healthcare system, whatever. Like actually, we have to thank Johnson & Johnson because with Spravato, they have kind of pioneered that 2-hour window. So this is why I'm sort of commercially almost more excited about DMT, 5-MeO DMT, who fit exactly in this 2-hour window or psilocin. Yeah. So at the end, they're really, it's like in a family and you ask me like, which kid is more beautiful or whatever, like they all have their beauty in their own way.
I definitely agree with you, and specifically for me, it's DMT. I'm so excited in terms of, and to your credit, what you're saying about Spravato and that whole framework it can fit into. It's very exciting in regards to just what DMT can do in that time in terms of pound for pound delivering these profound spiritual mystical moments in a very short time frame.
Yeah. What it interestingly seems to be, it's not a scientific thing, but like I think that's my personal belief. All these medications are kind of designed, and then you can say by who, by God, by whatever, by nature, to work sort of in their journey. Yeah. What does interestingly seems not to work, which is the reason why we as Atai, and we had all the opportunities. I always say we were the first ones. We might have made mistakes, but like we had 2 years where we were the only ones. Yeah. So, and thank you for the compliment, because that's what I'm really proud of, Jake. Like, it's like, I want to kind of people know, like everybody's a little bit proud of something, like that we were the ones who sort of pioneered that and really reinvented that. So what I would say, for 2 years, we were sitting there and we could have done LSD, for example. Yeah. And I always said it, like in the early investors calls, nothing cooler than a day on the beach with some LSD. Yeah. But it's a 12-hour window. Yeah. And what interestingly seems not to work is pulling you out of it in the middle. There were some ideas in the early days. Can you give an antidote and stop the trip? But it seems to be designed as a journey.
Yes.
Yeah. And as it's a kind of spiritual answer, but like you say, if you stop the journey, so if the journey was designed a 2-hour journey, you've finish it, 4-hour journey. So practically, that's why we at the end said there is, while I think LSD is a cool thing, is like there is no place for LSD, even if it produces the data, by the way. It was never a question that LSD will produce the data it produces because it's a great drug. But why would you do it when you have a 2 or 4-hour alternative instead of a 12-hour, which, by the way, 2 to 4, you can still say, oh, a doctor can say, look, I have more experience with psilocybin, or I believe in your case, psilocybin works better, because it doesn't change the whole thing. A 12-hour window means you need to stay overnight. That is sort of the big cutoff, is like 6 hours, because then if it's longer, people need to come in a day or before, like whatever, and that messes up everything. Too costly, will not work. So just like that's a little bit the commercial thoughts behind that.
I got you. I definitely hear that. So my next question is, you have stated that you have taken psilocybin and DMT in countries where it is legal to do so. Along with this, you have stated that your first psilocybin experience was the single most meaningful experience of your life. I know sometimes it can be hard to describe such a profound experience, but can you share to the audience what made this trip so meaningful to you?
You say it's hard. No, it's not hard because I don't want to talk about it. It's like, I think it's two things. On the one side, it is a kind of, not a kind of, it is a very deep, spiritual, mystical, out-the-worldly experience. And by definition, by the way, I was looking it up, like one of the definitions of mystical is that it's hard to put it in words. So it's sort of but also second, then some of the things I did, and I can really very concretely point to what I learned, are so banal that people don't understand why it was so important. Because like, I give you an example. One of the really the first thoughts I had on my first psychedelic trip was how much I love my parents, and I'm an only child. But it also showed me that one of the deep fears I have, which I never sort of articulated till then, was that my parents someone will die before me if everything goes normal, and then I'm deeply afraid of that. And then sort of kind of the learning was, you can't change that. But what you can change is how much time you spend with them till that happens. And I was in this moment in my life, it was like, again, we had always a great relationship, but I was in this phase like, hey, traveling the world. And even when I was in Frankfurt where they live and I'm seeing them, I was like, oh, I can see them tomorrow evening, because like, and then now I'm more like, no, like I want to see them tonight, because I don't want to make it too negative, because it was a very positive thing, but like there might be some window tomorrow. And push it. So I don't know, my parents were the first ones. I didn't tell them that I took mushrooms, but like they were like, okay, something changed. You're not nicer. I was always nice to them, but you're more like there. I was saying you're more like so. So if I tell you that, you could say, look, I could have told you that. Or like I always say jokingly, most of the stuff I learned on psychedelic trips, you could read in a great Deepak Chopra book, whom I admire and adore, and by the way, I'm a big fan of psychedelics. But the problem is when you read certain things, and by the way, you could read it in most religious books, honor your parents, spend time with them. But everything other people tell you, and you can read, in Germany, we have the saying, it goes in here, goes out there, maybe 5% sort of stick. And I think the beauty of psychedelics is that you have some of these very simple but very positive realizations, but on such a deep level of experience, or a deep level of acknowledging them, that you come out and like, yes, like I'm gonna change my life, I'm gonna adjust it to make room for whatever I have learned. So that's why I want to say, because people expect the big revelations, but the big revelations are the basic things we all should, by the way, know. It's again, I'm a big kind of fan of the original teachings of religions. Why I say it that way is because I think most religions became kind of messed up when they became organizations, because then people are using it for control and add a lot of bullshit. But if you go to the very original teachings of many religions, most religions, what is it? Like, be a good person, honor your parents, be a nice person, be nice to other people, don't be a dick. Love others like you want to be loved. Like, it's not so complicated, but again, if you learn it on a psychedelic trip, you learn it on that depth these people originally were experiencing it, and that makes people really change their lives.
I agree with you. And also, I think with psychedelics, in the day to day, you can think about these things and it's more of a rational thought. You intellectualize it. Whereas with psychedelics, I think it gives you the ability to actually feel
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to feel that thing. So it can be extremely profound. Jake, you can take it away.
Yeah, I really like the way just going off what you said, Adam, and what you said, Christian, about with psychedelics, like again, you could like there's things that you know going into the trip, but when you're in that experience, you really feel it at a deeper level, and that can cause you to make a lot of positive changes in your life if you decide to. So Christian, I would like
I'll
to
give you one
ask
more
you.
example, like just like how simple it is. Like I had a friend who was very depressive, and he was with a therapist, and I witnessed it again in a country where it's legal, doing a psychedelic trip, and his reason. By the way, at the end, you can trace back many mental health issues to some sort of a few like sort of I think basic reasons. Like one is trauma, yeah. The other one is existential fear of you dying or your loved ones dying. The other one is being obsessive over negative stuff and not seeing the beauty of life. And in this case, the person who was depressive was that person, like had actually a lot in life, like had many reasons to be happy, yeah, but was obsessing with some fears and some really banal stuff. Like this person was sitting in front of a flower for 4 hours, yeah, and saying nothing else, always like to his therapist that this is the most beautiful flower he has ever seen. And he's realizing now in the symbol of that flower how amazing life is. Yeah. So again, by the way, this is what I tried to tell this person for 10 years. Yeah. That his life is amazing, that there literally been a lot of flowers around him. Yeah. And he just needs to see the beauty of life. Yeah. But the way how he experienced it on this trip was just so deep, so profound, so absolute, that he came out of it and was a changed person.
To your credit, when you were speaking about different psychedelics, kind of having these different purposes almost, or show you different things, um, DMT, for example, I think is a one that really is profound for making people comfortable with mortality and looking at mortality.
Yeah.
And then you also have on the other side of that, you have 5-MeO DMT, which can get people very comfortable with the idea of just really appreciating life. And it's just very interesting how these different psychedelics can elicit these different perspectives in such a significant way.
Yeah, 100% agree. Couldn't add, like was very well said. And this is why I said they are very complementary to each other. Either complementary, that in a journey people should do some of them, or that it's really like it depends what you want to solve. Like, and again, this is why I'm so, and I know some people, not you, but like some people think I'm a little bit of almost too conservative, too of a hypocrite, because I'm so focused on that these drugs, like these medications, should be just medically available. As you know, like we're very like on the side, like no legalization in a broad way. You have to go to a therapist. But what I can say is two things. All the big sort of success stories I've seen, they were equally credited to the therapist. Yeah. And it starts already picking the right psychedelic. Yeah. According to what the person needs. So there is an assessment before, and then sort of doing the whole therapy, not just the trip itself, but the therapy and then the trip and the process. So I really deeply believe it. I'm not saying that. I know a lot of people say, oh, is Christian saying that because it's the way to make money? No, I think because I say that because I've seen it over and over again, that therapy plus psychedelics with a therapist together in a regular environment is the way to go, which is, by the way humans always did it. People are always saying, oh, the 60s. I was like, yes. And I know it's controversial what I'm saying now, but the 60s were an anomaly, which actually, at least partly, it was more the government, yes, but like they laid the ground, or they gave the government the opportunity, Timothy Leary and co., to make psychedelics illegal. Yeah, because they did it kind of, I know the wrong way is maybe too harsh, but the loose way. If I go back the last 10,000 years, except of the 60s, all religions who dealt with psychedelics gave them the respect they deserve. And the respect they deserve was also and is also to say they are very powerful. They're not to be tampered with. They're not party drugs. Yeah. You do it with a shaman together, with a priest. By the way, some of these religions were much, I could show you around here is a statue of Demeter, from the Eleusinian Mysteries. It was forbidden by death to do it outside the Eleusinian Mysteries. That's a little bit harder than what I want to do. Yeah. So, but people knew why, because it's so important to give people the framework so that these powerful medications can really unfold their potential.
Mm. So well said, Christian. And I'm excited to see with with the medical model and the research being done, it will be maybe slightly off topic here, but it will be interesting as we get more data. We'll be able to know who maybe is more likely to respond to each different psychedelic. I think that's another benefit here with the medical model and the research that's being done because of this potential rollout of psychedelics into the medical world. Going a little off topic here, Christian. So you have spoken about your belief that more and more people will begin to study in fields such as psychology, psychiatry, neuroscience. More people will be open to becoming therapists as psychedelic medicine continues progressing. I myself can say that I have seen this firsthand around me in my life. I would like to ask you, what have the conversations between you and therapists in the field of mental health looked like in relation to the future of psychedelic medicine?
Well, so first of all, why do you become a therapist, or why do people become a therapist, a doctor, whatever? Because I believe they truly want to help people. So if this is your motivator, and then you are going into a system where the one group of drugs, which I said before, in the meantime, again, and we had it in the last century, universally accept that they are the biggest tool set, not the only one. Yeah, I don't want to discredit some other therapies, but the biggest and most important tool set. If that is taken away from you, this is super frustrating. Think about you becoming a dentist, and for an absurd political reason, the government would have outlawed anesthesia in teeth. And you see all the children suffering when you whatever treat them, and you're like, there was something I was able to give them to not suffer, and I'm not allowed to. It's absurd. Like if you think about anything, think about you becoming an oncologist, and the government tomorrow decides, you know what? Chemotherapy is illegal. And you're like, what? Like, that's my main tool. Not the only one, but it's my main tool. No, it's illegal. You need to be an oncologist, but like without that, How do you feel as being able to know? And by the way, that's what I met so many therapists who said, look, first of all, we can't wait for you to succeed because we do know that that's what we really need. I met actually many therapists who said, I'm actually growing mushrooms at home. By the way, risking my license, risking my life. But if I have a patient who is about to kill themselves or whatever, which is really bad, I had so many therapists that I feel the obligation to even risk my own career and everything and sort of kind of do it myself. Like, that's why we have so many data underground. And they were like, but you give me the ability now to do it above ground, like, so whatever. So I would say they are unisono, like very eagerly awaiting that, participating in the training as well, what MAPS and Compass is doing. So, and then the other thing is, I believe better in any job, it's a general saying, I think if in the moment a job becomes more fulfilling because you're able to help more, maybe more people will jump on that job and say, hey, now I want to become a therapist because and in a bigger way, that's just like a bigger picture. Is like, I think one of my other theories about society is because of AI and robotics, we're going to work less and less, or have to work as society, or many jobs will fall away. I think the vast majority of jobs will fall away. But I think there are several groups or categories of jobs which are not just harder to replace, but which I think will be more like valued than in society. And I think being a therapist, because I deeply believe, yes, we can use technology to make therapy more efficient, But my personal view is 100%. You need humans, in that process, and they can't explain it really. Like, it's not scientific what I'm saying, or like maybe it is, like, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I believe in. So you have on the one side a lot of jobs which we don't need. You don't need to be an Uber driver because there will be self-driving cars, da, 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 da. But I think we're going to value as society also more therapists, doctors, people who work with people, and hence sort of you have both. You have sort of more tools which make the individual thing more fulfilling, but like also, like, I think people will come from other areas and say, oh, I why don't I do this? So I'm very optimistic, which also means I'm very optimistic for the what some people predict will be a bottleneck, which will be there because like there will be a little bit of an adjustment period. But I think, again, quickly, many more people will get the job.
Yeah, and I think a lot of therapists, they believe that these psychedelics have the potential to help people get to the root causes of their trauma, depression, and I think that's very exciting to them.
But also, by the way, and then to speak about the bottleneck, maybe to add exactly what you're saying, like at the moment, also a lot of therapists tell me, look, because I don't have the tools, I need to go in endless sessions just to keep people stable. For example, talk therapy, standalone, I think will never or rarely be able to cure things. Can you keep somebody stable? Yes, but it's not what you want. They think about the cost for society, but also like that is creating so much bottleneck. So I do think that talk therapy combined with psychedelics can really cure some of these issues, and that frees up capacity because yes, the individual process one time is a lot, but then that person might be off and not needing it again forever. Yeah. So while at the moment, the whole world, the whole mental health patients are chronic people. Yeah. So I see it that maybe for some years, again, there will be a little bit of a bottleneck of too little therapists, too many people wanting it. But I think we're going to get net people out of the system by them being cured. And I hope we're going to get more therapists into the system by it being a more fulfillable or fulfilling job.
You're extremely passionate about the psychedelic medicine space, and this passion is truly infectious. I think it's fully on display right now. It is no secret that you believe psychedelics have the potential to revolutionize mental health care. With that said, is there anything that concerns you when it comes to the future of psychedelic medicine?
Not really. Like, if administered properly, it's maybe one of the, I don't even see any risk if it's administered properly, because I think one of the worst things you could have is what people colloquially say a bad trip, but I think a bad trip is not a bad trip, but it's more like a I would say a stressful trip or a demanding trip. But again, if guided properly, that's normally when a lot of my best in terms of outcome learning, bringing me forward trips were the ones who were pretty challenging. That's maybe the right word. So there is really, it's one of the very few things. Again, I compare it sometimes with chemotherapy in cancer because of the importance, and because you have also in chemotherapy you have to go in, and it's the same framework. But chemotherapy has real side effects, psychedelics don't. Yeah. So actually no. So there is nothing which concerns me when done properly at all. What concerns me or worries me a bit is, and by the way, it's maybe even unfair what I'm saying, but society in this case is unfair, is that because it's one of the very few things like we doing, you rarely have for a new drug, meaning in terms of normally drugs are approved and then people start talking about them. Psychedelics now, luckily, by the way, and I think that is very good because it was a big support, and I do it as well, I talk about it, but like sort of it's rarely that sort of a group of new medications is so broadly, what I said, accepted by society before it actually comes. So what is a little bit, and I want to be careful because I know people would say I'm a hypocrite, I'm doing it in a country where it's legal, but like the fact that some people do it and might not do it in a not even regulate. For me, it's important in the proper way. Do it with a shaman in the Amazon. That's I totally approve. Like, but if you would ask me, I think I deeply believe these medications are meant to be done with another human being who knows what they're doing and is your guide, whatever you call it. And it doesn't need to be a doctor. It doesn't need to be in a clinic. It can be in the Amazon. Yeah, it can even be at Burning Man if you have a companion who's there for you. I'm not. People always try to make my answer black and white, or Christian doesn't want to do it as they're like. I want to do it people in a way that they profit from as humans, and I deeply believe these drugs, these medications deserve it. But why I'm saying that is because, again, it's not like they're not poisonous, whatever, but if done not in the right setting, there can go things wrong. Emotionally, there is very rarely that, by the way, and if it's an accident. So, and now what I want to say is the unfortunate thing of media, society is, the same, by the way, with self-driving cars. If one self-driving car has an accident, that's everywhere in the news. And it's a real headache for Tesla. Nobody sees that, what is it, globally, 60,000 people a year which die because humans make a mistake. It is unfair. But that I'm worried about for the next 2 years. Then someone is like, when people do it out of the framework I think they should do it in, and then produce an accident. Not that they're going to be poisoned, but like, produce an accident. I mean, I was like, the bus driver who accidentally kills some kids because he's on mushrooms. Or, by the way, we had it actually, and how I say, God bless his soul, but Matthew Perry doing ketamine in a pool. Yeah. So, but the headlines didn't say Matthew Perry drowned because he was incapacitated by ketamine. No, the headline said he died of ketamine, which is completely wrong. You don't die of ketamine. Yeah, but you might die of an accident which you have while on ketamine. Nobody would do it for alcohol. Nobody would say if a drunk driver has a car crash, the headline says drunk driver causes car crash and dies. There, we're normal. Nobody would say this guy died of alcohol, but kind of, you know what it was. So this is what I'm worried about, that till these drugs really have arrived in society and are accepted and become really normal, we have a headline risk. And I don't want to be the teacher or the father or whatever, but like everybody who's using it outside of the medical world, do it with the dignity and the gravity these drugs deserve.
Yeah, Christian, I agree with much of what you said. I actually share similar concerns. Actually, Adam and I were speaking about this recently, where our worry is that there may be a double standard here with psychedelics due to, stigma. For example, with speaking about, I guess, medically, SSRIs, SNRIs, they have side effects. In some cases, suicidal ideation can be made worse with them. There's, sexual side effects, and no psychiatric medications are without their risks. And, again, just one of the things that Adam and I are a little bit concerned about, not overly concerned, but the fact that, these psychedelics may be held to a double standard due to stigma. And
they surely are, but that's the world we live in. And we need to accept that. And so if you ask me about risks, that's unfortunately, yes, is it fair? No. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that's how media functions, whatever. Yes, 100%.
And thank you so much for the time, Christian. We really, really appreciate it.
It's my favorite topic. Like I really I love doing that because the drugs deserve it. Like it's like, again, it's like very weird, but I think that's maybe one of the most important things, maybe the most important thing I can do for society is helping making these compounds become available again.
If you liked the video, please subscribe, and thank you very much, and have a good one, everyone.